Oh no, we're live.
You wonder why Philip will never go live, Brian.
We are live, everyone.
The newest booktuber is officially wrecking the show.
There's some context, everyone, that you might be missing.
It's live. What can you do? You know, you just roll with it.
You can't time these things perfectly. But anyway, we are live, and we are so happy to be here. This is the Quilluminati, everyone. And we are here to discuss Ordinary Grace by William Kent Krueger.
Am I the only one who doesn't have a physical version? Brian, do you have a physical version?
Yeah.
I got
mine from the library.
I'm not. I don't write with quills anymore either, so I don't know if I can be a part of this anymore.
I support Minnesota residents, authors. Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure the words were the same, though. Pretty sure. Yeah. Pretty sure.
I hope so.
Wasn't it incredible when the dragon came, Mike?
It was unbelievable. And the part where Prince showed up. I mean,
was like,
Minnesota
made the whole deal worthwhile. And then they had a dance party. The end.
It is mandatory if it's set in Minnesota to have Prince show up. I guess
for sure.
Okay. Well, anyway, we are going to be discussing this book, Ordinary Grace. We're going to start with no spoilers. So the whole thing about Prince and the dragon and all that, that's not really a spoiler. But we are going to start non-spoiler for anyone who has not read this. If you can hang out with us for a while. And when we finish the non-spoiler part of our discussion, we're going to reveal our next read for the Quilluminati.
Which I am very excited about.
Yes. We are excited about that.
I think all four of us are very excited.
I think we are pretty excited about our next book.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of people who want to read along with us.
There's your hook. Stay tuned.
Yeah,
Stay
absolutely.
tuned. Stay tuned.
The king of teas, Dr. Phil Chase.
Dr. Tease. Dr. Tease.
Dr. Tease.
You can see the viewer count just rolling down.
Yeah.
This is how you kill a channel, folks. Excellent.
Yeah,
no,
I think we're
already go tomorrow and be fine.
Yeah,
we're already demonetized, I think. Anyway, we're going to be doing non-spoilers. We will reveal our next read, and then we'll go on to spoilers for Ordinary Grace. So the folks who are with us to hear our non-spoiler opinions, our assessment of this, can find out what we're going to be reading next as well.
Hey, I want everybody to know this was my pick. And I feel like it's already went over better than John's pick did. So,
well,
like
you can only go up from here, right? I am never getting out from under this cloud. It's never going to happen.
Oh, at the end of the year, he shall be roasted. There's no doubt.
That bus has rolled over you, I think, a dozen times now.
Reverse has been used.
Content, John, it's be great.
I do have to pick in December, right? Like I'm already stressed.
I pick in December.
Oh, you pick in December. Okay.
I pick in December.
It might come up again. Yeah.
But we will next convene after this on Brian's channel, I think, right? It's Brian's channel, BellTube.
Provided it still exists, absolutely.
He who hosts picks the next book. And
that's right. That's how it works. So I've actually the person who sort of suggested the next read. But this one was Mike's pick. And let's start with you guys, your non-spoiler assessment. I think we're going to have some agreement as to the quality of this experience, but let's start with John. John, what did you think of and non-spoiler?
Wow, the prose is gorgeous. The characters are so engaging, completely suck you in. I think even though you may not have come of age in the 60s, you're still going to find a lot that just draws you along and pulls you in. The sense of place I found amazing. Not only the sense of place, but the sense of where we were as a mindset, as a country, at that time, as it was kind of changing and unraveling, and this young boy is coming of age and starting to see his parents deal with that and himself deal with that as growing older. So many levels going on, and then on top of that, of course, a mystery that I thought I had it. I was close, but no cigar. But I thought I had it, but no, I did not. And right before they revealed, I got it before it revealed, but so close I'm not going to count it. And it was just like, no, it's so it worked on that level as well. So I just, man, hats off to Mike. It was a very, very enjoyable read.
Awesome. And we are saying hello to a few of the people who are in the chat. Thank you guys.
Yes, I am.
Jason is also a Minnesota resident.
He is. Jason is.
Yeah, we have
Absolutely.
some people from Minnesota here in the chat, and
There are
we have
dozens of us. Yeah.
a pretty good guess as to our next read.
Oh, you're very close.
You have a cheat sheet.
Yep, a lot of fans here of
I feel
Ordinary
like
Grace.
it's been a pretty big people pleaser. People just on my channel viewers on my channel have been saying they were going to read along too. Have really seemed to have a good reception for it. I haven't heard anybody actually say they didn't like the book, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
My mom read along.
Oh wow, great.
Yeah.
You're getting a little compliment there too, Mike.
Well, thank you, Jason.
Good taste.
We usually read the same things, Jason and I. So that
You
works.
could actually go from there. A good segue, Mike. What were your non-spoiler thoughts on?
Oh, well, it's easy for me when you deal with some coming of age. I mean, I'm in right there from then. But what you kind of brought up, John, about saying like it doesn't matter if you didn't grow up in that time period, is when I was talking about The Body by Stephen King, which is Stand By Me for people who've only seen the movie, is I brought up in that review, I said, I don't know if people who didn't kind of grow up in small town America, riding our bikes all summer, if this would really if it would touch you as much. And I had someone who was like, I'm in Baghdad. I don't even own a bike. And this book hit me like a ton of bricks. So yes, it can transcend things like that. So I feel like it's always going to kind of, it doesn't really matter if you kind of grew up in the 60s or if you've been to Minnesota. I don't know why you'd want to do that anyway. It's too cold. It's too cold. But for me, I think that, I don't really notice prose very much, but yeah, he had some beautiful, beautiful words really strung together here. And for me, it was like, and I think we were talking about this in our group chat, was saying that like, I was about like the halfway point. Like, look, I'm enjoying it. I think that the slice of life's great. The setting is amazing. I love his writing style. I was like, kind of don't really understand what the plot is though. And it was like, oh, okay. So you have to have that coming of age moment that transitions you from, your childhood into adulthood, and sometimes a little earlier, as it would do for Frank here. Was he 13, I think, when this starts? Mm-hmm. But I think for me, it was just like once you get that certain passage, which we'll talk about when we get to spoilers, I'm sure, when you realize what the title of this book means, hey, I'm talking about dad shit, man. It was great. It was really, really good. So yeah, very, very, very happy. And I did read it for all you guys, but I was worried at first when coming, you're all kind of like, I don't really know. But I was like, I'd give some time. They'll get there just like I did. And I'm happy to say that I think everybody did, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Brian, it is such a pleasure to have you here, and I think you can actually even see me at the moment.
Well, actually, now I can't because you garbled again. But I will say, but I will say, when you throw comments up, you come back on the screen.
Really?
So yeah, it's technically
he's drinking from a bell flask, and you're missing it.
I'm literally missing that right now. But when there's comments, see now you're back. Now you're back. Now you're look at that. There's my next spokesmodel. Oh my gosh. Dr. Tease. I love it.
I don't know if that name's gonna stick.
He's teasing what's in the bell flask.
Is he King Tease or is he Dr. Tease? Because I feel like it's two different things.
I think Brian, if you want a spokesmodel, you have Philip with the bell flask and the little puppy pulling his bathing suit down. Dr. Tease.
Oh my God. That is so funny.
Now I know why Philip doesn't do these live, you guys.
Yeah. It's terrific. So my non-spoiler thoughts. This is really cool for me too, because both books that we've done so far are new authors to me. So I'd never read Simon Jimenez, and I'd never even heard of William Kent Krueger, who is apparently from here. I'm really glad that we do these kinds of things because it brings us into some genres that otherwise I wouldn't find myself. There's literally absolutely, Dr. Chase. I've only got this one, but it's merch, so that counts. So I will say that I just loved finding an author that is so new to me that I absolutely want to go pick up whatever else she's written and read it, because I thought it was just such a well put together book. And speaking as somebody who was born and raised here, he absolutely has the flavor of Southwest rural Minnesota completely down. The location in this book is fictional, but it is based on an area that's about 2.5 hours. About 2.5 hours southwest of me here, and I'm about in downtown Minneapolis, really close to it. So about 2.5 hours southwest, and there is a different sensibility out in kind of the sticks of Minnesota that you get in the Twin Cities, and he just nailed it. It was like, wow, it was just a big wow for me. I loved the coming of age part. I loved the characters. They seemed like, I'm younger than, the people in this book, but
Yeah,
not,
sure.
yeah, I mean, kind of, but not so far off that I couldn't relate. Right. So, I mean, they weren't, we weren't going to the drugstore, for the soda pops and all that stuff the way that they did here in the 60s. But all of that equipment and stuff was still around in rural Minnesota, when I was young. So it just felt a lot like home to me. And the author's talent was just insane. So I'm really glad that you picked this book, Mike, or whoever, suggested it to you. I think there's probably been a lot of people that did, just because this is so cool for me to find a new author. So
one that's local. Yeah. And I would definitely be reading more from this author, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like I mean, whether or not the next story itself is as compelling as this, who knows? But we know that we're starting with an author who can write a story.
Yeah. So Simon Jimenez, I'll never touch again. But
right.
Yes, I will.
Let's hope Evie's not in the chat. So, like Jason has kindly given a couple more titles.
Cool.
Yeah, Tinderland's the one I've gotten told a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Very neat.
And
how about you?
Me, yeah. I'm going to
Dr.
comment on the screen all the time so Brian can see me, because otherwise Brian cannot see me. It's a weird technical glitch here.
Crack the code, though.
We're just going to keep a comment here.
If you keep a comment up, I can see it perfectly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Joe.
Let's keep that comment up the entire
entire time.
The whole stream.
We'll talk about a hook. Now whoever tunes in has to rewind to figure out what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of aspects of this book. So I'm not from Minnesota. I have never been to Minnesota. I've been closest I've been, I think, is Michigan. So not a part of the country I'm really familiar with, but I felt like I was there in this. At least he gave me the illusion that I was there. Beautiful coming of age story. There's just some really gorgeous moments in this story and some heartbreaking ones. It's a real great combination of just slice of life, coming of age, but also some really deep stuff, some really, important themes about life and death and just how we relate to our loved ones, the importance of, being with our loved ones and communication and just so much in this. There were some beautiful moments. I think all of us, except Brian, who doesn't cry when he reads books. So he's the exception. Well, I don't know. He saves his tears for other things or something, I guess. But
yeah, it's football team.
Data Bell.
The football team.
Hey, we got the same record right now.
I mean, Mike's not entirely wrong on that, so I can't say much. But yeah, I'm not a crier on books. But yeah, I can see how this would be, tear jerking at points for sure.
Yep. And there we go. Thank you so much for showing up. Glad you finished in time.
Yeah.
And Michigan, good. A Michigander, I believe you're called. And then we have this question, which I just answered because all of us except Brian definitely had a few.
At one part, yeah. I mean, not bawling, but like I was misty-eyed. Like I said, the part where you realize what the title means.
Mm-hmm.
It has something personal for me, which we'll get into spoilers a lot.
Get into that.
It hit me by chapter. It hit me by chapter 2. I got misty by chapter 2.
No, it didn't get me that early. But
so my personal connection to this one is a little different from Brian's, which is I think Brian's is evident, being he's from that area, knows the place. But this is not a spoiler because it's literally in the description here. But my father is a minister, and that is a situation that is in the book as well. That a character is. Did
your dad have as much patience as Nathan did? Because I wish I had one fraction of the amount of patience this man has. Like, he never blows his top. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean they're not identical, but I would say that in many ways, my father's is kind of. I never once heard him swear my entire life. And he's just like he's in the military, so there's that common background because that's also
wow.
I mean, my father's younger, obviously. The character in here would have been the age of my grandfather, I guess, really. But still, there were some interesting resonances there for me growing up a PK. So that was a kind of a neat connection for me in this one. But beautiful story. So glad I read it, and I think it was a great pick. Any other non-spoiler stuff for the folks who are in the chat who may not have read this yet?
Just that I think Frank might be the low-key MVP of this book for me, maybe. Or Jake. Sorry, Jake. Jake might be the low-key MVP. Yeah, Jake. I got the names flipped.
Yep, cool.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong there. I think that there's a point to be made there.
Like if you think about the book now and you go back and you look at it as Jake, the main character, and you can say, okay, I can see these themes if that's what he was actually angling for, because again, non-spoiler here, but even after everything that goes down, he's still the one that's like, let bygones be bygones, basically. Let's just live our lives. And it's just like, wow. And then that epilogue is like, I just stop this.
The epilogue. The epilogue got me big time. But it's like it's not only the beautiful prose that he can use, he earns every emotional moment, right? That got to all of us. It's like, that's such a kind of an alchemy for one writer to have both those tools in his belt. It was really something.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. stuff. So
did anyone figure out the mystery?
I did.
I did with basically 2 paragraphs before it happened.
Oh no!
Yes.
I was
like
I guessed every single person except the right person.
I can't say specifically when because it would be a spoiler, but I figured it out about 2/3 of the way through.
Really? Wow. No,
about halfway for me.
Literally, my mouth was on the floor when it was being revealed. I was stunned.
I was like a chapter.
Either they weren't going to reveal it, or it was just going to be one of the people I suspected. And it was something else. It's like, wow. Okay.
So. I got it like a chapter before they revealed it. And up to then, I was pretty sold on somebody else.
I don't know. I mean, I don't suss out mysteries all that well that often. And this one, it just sort of came to me like a bolt of lightning about halfway through the book. And I just thought, this is whodunit, so to speak. So, but hard to say without spoiler stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, speaking of which, I think that is our signal. Before we go spoiler, though, we are going to reveal let me give you a smaller comment so you don't have to hide behind the comment. All right. We're going to reveal our next read for the Quilluminati, and we are going to be convening in December.
Yes.
On Brian's channel to discuss this book. So if you're interested in joining us for this discussion, it's not a super long book. It's 333 pages in my edition.
Good number.
Yeah. 333 pages. It is.
That's on the downside.
Yeah.
It's also book 1 of blank.
Well, it can be book 1 of a lot, but it also works as a standalone. It works as a standalone. Sure. That's the consensus. So you don't have to continue the series. If you could be very satisfied just by reading this book, and that's why we all agreed this was a good pick for us for the
great pick. Yeah.
And so, do we do a drum roll or something, or do we
1, 2, 3? We all hold it up.
John, I don't have it.
I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it?
Okay, no. I got one. You don't. Ha ha.
John's like the sound effects guy.
Yeah.
All right. Sound effects ready. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Boom. This is our next read. Is The Last Kingdom by Bernard. That's for all the British folk out there.
I get corrected every time. Yeah.
Bernard Cornwell. Okay, you may have heard of it.
Cooler, except we both have fake stickers. God dang it.
Yeah, fake sticker. Yeah.
I love the TV series. I've never read the book, so this is the kick in the ass I needed. It's one of those where I kept on putting it off. I loved Warlord Chronicles. I still think it's probably like one of the best series you ever read. Yeah. Basically, and so I've been itching to do this forever. So thank you. Great pick.
Yeah, and I suspect that this book's going to actually get Philip to push Warlord up his TBR schedule as dense as it may be. When you get a hold of this guy's writing, it's so. Yeah.
You will
specifically
love
Philip
Warlord.
Of anybody that I know that would appreciate that guy's writing, just with all of the medieval everything that goes into the naming of the characters, just everything about it screams Philip to me. So it's
be great. You guys are gonna be going around telling everybody that your name is Uhtred, son of Uhtred. It's gonna be amazing. I can't wait.
Yeah,
excellent.
Destiny is all.
Destiny is all.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're pretty happy about this pick. I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about it, but we're going to finish talking about Ordinary Grace right now.
Cool.
So if you are someone who has not read Ordinary Grace, this is your chance to hop off. We are going to do complete spoilers now of Ordinary Grace. So this is your final warning for spoilers for Ordinary Grace. But thanks for hanging out with us. Bingo. All right. So, yeah, we have other people who were definitely got the tear ducts going.
Remind me what happened in chapter 22 through 24. Is that I don't remember it like that.
It's closer to the end, I think.
Yeah.
Is that the part I talk about, like where you realize it's just Jake? He's actually able to say grace without stuttering.
Oh, that.
Grace.
Oh,
That might be.
Why this is personal for me is like I have a kid on the spectrum. He struggled with speech delay for a long time, and when he finally actually started talking, you know, it was really broken. It was really difficult to understand, make coherence, to even understand what he was saying. So when he finally got to that point where he was being communicative, it really just it was overwhelming, you know, as a parent. Because that's something you just take for granted, I think, or whatever. So seeing someone deal with a speech impediment like that, and you have that moment of clarity, it's just like, wow, yeah. And realizing that's what the title meant was just like, that's a great hook.
So that's the moment that really got you, Mike.
Yes, and that's personal dad shit there, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, it got me too, I have to say, but I think personal.
And then the epilogue, of course, because, you know, I think that's, as parents, that's what we all want to be, you know, sharing a beer with our kids and reminiscing and, you know, going back to the hometown and looking at things and just remembering people that aren't here anymore. You know, I think that's really, really touching way to end the book. I'm going to cry now.
Yeah. Of course, it is where the book gets its title, Ordinary Grace, because that is what Jake says, an ordinary grace. And that has so many layers of meaning to it, doesn't it?
It really does. Because we get, and I don't know how you want to arrange the discussion, Philip, but we get such a frustrated Ruth, you know, the wife and the mother throughout the entire book. Yeah. And it finally explodes. And again, this is such a Minnesota thing where it's just pent up and pent up and pent up, and things are allowed to fester. And, you know, you hear the term Minnesota nice, and everybody's just all nice and smiling because they don't let loose their emotions all that much. And I think we really find that with Ruth throughout this entire story. I mean, she marries a guy who is going to be an attorney. And then she finds out that she's actually married to a minister, and she seems displeased about a lifetime of that. And maybe that's not really what she signed up for. And after all of the events of the book, and you can just see that tipping point with the character Ruth, who really isn't what I would consider to be one of the main characters of the book. You know, it's Frank, it's Jake, it's Nathan, it's, you know, the cops and all of that. But Ruth just hits that tipping point and is like, can't you just say an ordinary grace instead of where he was about to go into his whole normal minister-esque type of a grace, and just say an ordinary one. And that's about as, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Just as explosive of those emotions as she really gets in this book. But I could viscerally feel that coming from her, of a lifetime of just aggravation and pent up anger issues with her husband, through the choices that he's made and and the death, obviously, of her daughter, just coming right to a head there. And for me, that is where I found the most brilliance in this book, in how he titled it, because I didn't know what ordinary grace was as a title until you get to the very end of this, and she's saying, can't you please just say an ordinary grace? And so my mom says Mike just made me cry, not the book. So yeah, she said that,
Oh man, that's I think that anyone who you know, regardless of your religious beliefs or whatever, say you are a God-fearing person and you lose a child, I think you're going to have that crisis of faith.
Oh my gosh.
That's what she's having there. And, you know, obviously Nathan, he can't just like turn it on, turn it off like that. And I've known people where it's like one person will be very religious, the other person not so much. They're married. And I'm just like, I don't know how you make that work. And I guess it's the same as like if you have different political beliefs, you know, there's a fine line between those two topics right there. But yeah, I think anyone that has this loss of child is going to struggle with those moments. And the last thing they're going to hear is, you know, this was God's plan. You know, so
well, a lot of marriages do not survive.
Yeah,
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
And basically where she's just like, there is no God and stuff like that to Frank, and that's just like just like a crushing moment, because you're at that age again. That's just one of those things that you just not used to hearing, especially in a family where you're raised like that. But also I think something that I kind of had to take myself out of is look at this also as what it's like to lose a sibling. I thankfully didn't have to go through that, but I've known people who have. They never feel whole again, and that's just something I can't relate to. Thank God. But they made me feel it in this book for sure.
Oh my goodness!
Because Ariel seemed like the best. I mean, she seemed amazing.
Oh, she was an angel.
Most of these stories, the teenage boy hates the sister. They can't stand each other. They were just like all super tight. It was really tough.
Yeah, and we forget that this takes place in a time where there is no DNA testing, there is no forensic evidence really at that point. So, and even if there was, there certainly wouldn't be one 2.5 hours southwest of the cities here. I mean, they wouldn't be set up to do that. Yeah. So, yeah.
John, I want to hear your thoughts on any of the moments we brought up, or other moments.
What made you cry in chapter 2?
Oh man, okay, chapter 2, when Gus gets up and speaks at the funeral, this strong man gets up and speaks for this dead child, and the things he said, and I just started, it was just a beautiful moment. Like, that's chapter 2. That got me. I already knew I was in for a long ride right at that point. It's like, okay. And I mean, what Brian brought up there, I think that idea of discontent, I just saw replayed over and over and over from character to character to character. Not just Ruth, who had given up her artistic dreams, and she thought she was marrying a lawyer, and she thought she was signing on for a certain kind of life, but these veterans that are coming back to America that aren't quite fitting in. Yes. This America that somehow has moved on, and this dividing line of the older people like Ruth's dad, whose lawn is still nice, and these people returning that don't really give a crap, and their lawn's getting all burnt up, and they're kind of, that's on the other side of the tracks now, and it's just over and over and over. I can't think of one adult character in this town that is not just suffering from the unraveling of this American dream, or suffering from discontent to what they thought their life would be when they were kids. And then you have these two children, these two wild-eyed children, Jake and Frank. Ariel's a bit of a young woman at this point, but has dreams herself that are somewhat getting squashed, right? So you have these two young boys, these wild-eyed young boys running around all day, watching all of these parents watching their dreams somewhat unravel. And then that epilogue at the end that Mike talked about, it's like when for me, such a magic moment as I got older, I finally got my parents. I finally understood my parents,
Happens to all of us, yeah.
Yeah. And now oh my God, please don't let me be my dad. And now when I look at myself in the mirror and see my dad, it's the biggest comfort, because it's as close as I can get to him. So it's these epilogues that all tied it up at the end for me, the discontent and yet still the humanity that runs through it. Thematically, just a very, 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 very powerful book. And the emotional rate, he comes through, all the emotion is motivationally earned, so pure, so well played. It just works on so many different levels. But that theme of the discontent in the America that's changing as in this small town. And I didn't grow up in Minnesota either, and far from Baghdad, but it's like I grew up in a small Texas town, and it so hit me. I heard Mike talk about, remember, you would leave 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and when you saw the streetlights come on, that's when you turned your bike around and went home, right? So that's, it just completely spoke to me in the same way.
I'm glad you brought up the part about the veterans, because my dad was a Vietnam vet, and if anybody doesn't know about this, Vietnam vets were treated a little differently when they came home than World War II vets.
Right, there was no thank you for your service. Yeah.
So my dad not only had the PTSD of actual war, but also the way that he was treated when he came home, and he passed away in 2017, never talked about it. At all. So I could see, again, another thing in Nathan that I kind of see, not just myself as a dad, but in my dad for sure. So yeah, this book has all the emotional resonance.
It's amazing. And you do see various ways of coping and dealing with that portrayed here. You've got Doyle, he's a veteran. You've got Gus, he's a veteran. You've got Nathan, he's a veteran.
Yeah, each of them is like, we're ride or die because of what your dad did for me. I love that. Yeah.
But how good of a man is Nathan to bring Gus, sure, live in the basement. Let me care for you. Nathan is
getting arrested. Yeah.
even though he keeps getting arrested.
Right.
I mean, Nathan is like that one good man. I mean, I know probably all of us heard our dad say a million times growing up, be a good man. Here's a good man. Meet this friend of mine. He's a good man. And, you know, for the longest time, I didn't know what the heck that meant. Right. Nathan is just that good man. Like, he's just that good man. He's the only person whose adult life went completely different than how he planned. And yet he is at the core, at the moral center of this as a good man.
But you also have to remember, he did something in that war that he is not.
It's like I kind of am upset we didn't really find out, but I also think that
it's kind of like I don't want to know
it makes it more powerful not knowing.
Yeah. And there's that moment where Gus says, you know, I thought you said that God would forgive us, you know, and Nathan doesn't seem like he's convinced himself, really. So there was something that turned him from the lawyer into
from the lawyer to the Lord. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I tell you, one of the moments, every moment you guys have mentioned was powerful. And I got teary-eyed during probably all of them. But the one of them that really grabbed me is Nathan's sermon after the death of Ariel.
Oh, yeah.
That one just
I can't even imagine to have that kind of strength. You know,
that
I
kind of
want to fall into a hole and die.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he stepped up for that. Like they said, we'll take it. We'll take
right.
that.
You don't need to do it.
Yeah. No, but he's, oh, wow. Yeah, that was big. Yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple comments and questions here.
Definitely.
We were talking about that earlier, how when Brian guessed earliest about what the mystery, solved the mystery earliest. But I think we are all pretty fooled for a while.
What was his name? Firestone? Was that the Indian guy?
Oh, Warren Redstone.
Warren Redstone.
So I thought, okay, no, that's way too predictable. It can't be him.
Right.
Even after he found her necklace, I was like, no, that makes sense. He had that jar of junk or whatever that he finds in the river. That makes sense. And okay, so I suspected the bully that Frank pushed in the water. I suspected Doyle was my actual number one.
Doyle too, yeah.
Because he was the one that you thought real convinced on it was going to be the boyfriend. Why does the boyfriend always get away with everything? And I was like, it sounds like it wasn't until that one part in the chapter where they say, hey, can you get the crowbars in the shed? And the light bulb went up and said, oh my God. I never, ever would have suspected.
See, the chapter before that, when they were in when Frank finally came to Gus, and then Gus said, you got to tell your dad. And they kind of went to the dad in the chapel and said, this is what Frank is thinking who it is, right? And that's who I thought it was, because I thought, oh my God, we're going to have this Nabokov moment. We're going to have our Lolita moment of the mentor that couldn't control himself, and you know, and just resonances from other classics, right? Like I knew it couldn't be Redstone because I've read Tom Sawyer. It's not Injun Joe. I'm not going down that road. So I thought we were going to have the Nabokov moment. But then when they were in that chapel and someone said, I can't remember who it was either Gus or Nathan said, you know, well, you have to think about who has the most to lose. And it's right then I went, oh, and it's her.
No.
That's who has the most to lose.
Even what was the blind guy's name? Her dad?
ML.
Yeah, I was even thinking, okay, he's blind. I was like, but you know what? I feel like he it's been real big about like he can hear things. You can make your path down to the river. I was like, you can just throw her in there. I was like, I just don't know if that could.
Well, that's what Frank thought.
Well, that's what he was trying to recreate. Yeah.
So basically, anytime he was spelling it out for us, like that ain't it. That ain't it. But I thought it was going to be Doyle and that he was going to get away with it up until the very end. And then it went until they mentioned the crowbar that jaw just dropped open.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question for Philip. So, just as an author, just obviously somebody who's studied literature, why do you suppose our author here kills off this kid on the train tracks like right away in the book? Is it to set the tone of, you know, kind of the beginning of the summer that Frank is going to describe for us? Is it to give us this element of mystery that maybe that Redstone guy is, you know, problematic? What do you think as you just look at the story, why that is there? Because I found it to be powerful at the beginning, obviously much less so as we get into the actual story, because it's not really important after, you know, a chapter or two.
So yes, it does set the tone early on. And it also, as you suggested, your second point there was about, what was your second point?
I don't listen to myself. I know better than that.
It sets up Warren Redstone as a red herring.
Yes. Okay, so it adds a bit to the could this man have done this because he's
he put his hand on his leg. So
And
he's
he's-
already a
he's-
creep.
He's
Right.
collected. He got from the
And
itinerary.
he's got the glasses.
Sure.
They make a point of him
got
showing
the glasses.
he's got the glasses.
He's a collector of some kind. Yeah. So
So-
it's part of that. But I also think thematically, it also maybe even more importantly, thematically is something that this is a book it's about death.
Mhm.
It's about how we grapple with death. It's about how death can come suddenly and what do you do with it. And some tragic figures in this story that we don't get to know too well are the parents of that boy who died early on. And we're just told that they're a bit older. And they somehow, by the end of the book, are able to come out and commiserate with Frank's family. And so there's a message there about death, but also about life, that we have to keep going. We have to find a way to carry that grief. It doesn't go away, it doesn't leave us, but we have to find a way to carry it. And somehow that boy's parents have done that to the extent that they're able to commiserate and empathize with this other family who's lost a child. So I think it's thematically just beautiful, actually, what William Kent Krueger does by beginning with the death of an innocent child. So all of the above, really, all of the above.
Interesting. And it is funny too, because that couple who does then go empathize at the end of the book, they seem rather, like I said, kind of Midwestern stoic about the whole thing as it happened, right? They don't seem
Sure.
overly distraught. They're certainly not portrayed that way.
Right.
But just kind of that stiff upper lip about the whole thing.
Right.
And until the end. And then they use what they've gone through, for the benefit, of the Drum family, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question about the father, I got that before it was like a two-step process of, Emil must be the father. And therefore, no, I don't think he's capable of killing, but his sister is. And she, like John said, she has a lot to lose. So what tipped you off? I think it was at the point where we learned where Carl makes his confession about being gay, that I realized, it has to be Emil who's the father, and therefore it's Lisa.
Well, I knew it wasn't Carl at that point.
Right. We knew it wasn't Carl.
Those two, of course. I mean, obviously, it's always going to be the boyfriend, but I was like, it's just two on the nose. There's two on the nose. So, I suspected Doyle. Doyle knocked her up, and Doyle solved the problem,
I didn't like Doyle until the moment when Doyle
he let Gus out of jail.
Let Gus out of jail so he can.
I thought he was just going to try to frame him for something, honestly, because I had just decided Doyle was a bad guy. But no, that kind of cleared him.
Doyle is a damaged guy. He's been damaged by his participation in war. His whole blowing up the frog and everything. I mean,
right? That was such a strange.
They torture a turtle, and it's something that will never free. I mean, there's all kinds of horrifying stuff happens to humans in that book, but I think about what happened to the turtle in that book. So same with the frog.
Yeah,
because I knew asshole kids like that, and wouldn't associate with them after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're talking about the epilogue here, I guess, or before that? Oh, okay. Yeah, but he was alive in the epilogue.
Yeah.
Yes. Did I miss that? Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah. No.
They were all ghosts all along.
It was our town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Nathan was the one who had passed away. They were visiting his grave, right? Nathan's grave.
No,
it was Ruth's grave.
Ruth.
Okay.
It was Ruth's grave.
She passed away of breast cancer.
I don't know. Maybe I was trying to read through misty eyes, and maybe.
But it was their annual get together, and they talked about in the epilogue how sometimes they used to bring their own families together, and this time it was just going to be the original three of them.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I got so much Stephen King off this, guys.
Yes.
I mean, if you've read The Stand, if you've read It, that is exactly what small town Maine is like in this book. So,
there's a lot.
Everything about it. And I said, basically, this book felt like Boy's Life by Robert McCammon and The Body by Stephen King just shook hands and said, let's get together and make a baby. That's what this book is. I mean, in all the best ways possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, I got to say real quick, my guy, Chris from Australia, Unlimited Breeds, is a good man. He sent me a box of a bunch of treats from Australia today that I got in the mail. So I just have to say thank you, Chris. You're the
and nobody can remember Emil's name.
Emil, okay,
Emil, yeah.
Look, I figured that out early, and it didn't make me happy because I hate that. I hate that trope.
So maybe I remember. Were him and Ruth like a thing back in the day?
Yes.
It was okay. So I was just like, do they still got something going on?
No.
No, but he was like living vicariously through the daughter.
Oh my God, can you
Yeah,
imagine that? It's the guy that you almost got with, and you are probably always thinking about what could have been with that guy, and then he knocks your daughter up.
Yes.
Holy God.
Although I have to say,
credit him though, he had the balls to like face him though.
Yeah.
I wonder in some regard, though, like we don't know this, he's never mentioned it, but if the daughter Ariel knew about him and her mom, was she in any sense trying to get at her mother by being
no.
with him?
I think
You don't
she's
think
trying
so?
just more to be like her mom. I don't know. Or,
Okay.
No,
you know,
look,
like
I think
parents will live vicariously through their children. Like you're going to go to the college that I wanted to go to, kind of type. Maybe it's like reverse. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go where my mom never went.
I do, yeah. I do think another theme of this that is in the book quite a bit is the transcendence of art, right? Ariel can sing like it and can take you to other places. Emil, even though he's had this twisted existence and things didn't work out for him as he thought it would as a composer and musician, can give us moments of transcendency from our physical existence in this little town where nothing's worked out the way we want it to. And in that moment, in those hot, passionate moments of creation, it's just, I find it so unsavory for that Lolita type theme. And I figured it out early, and it's just like, oh, please don't let him. I hope he's not the guy that does it because he can't face the town.
What how much unreliable narrator that is. We're talking about like she just goes out in the yard and just like stares at the window or something like. That doesn't sound like this Ariel girl that they described earlier. So I don't know. I mean, I guess when you're a teenager, no one can tell you that you're wrong. I mean, I remember this. We all probably remember that no one can tell you that you're wrong. And when you think you're in love, you're in love. It doesn't matter, damn the circumstances. But
and no one's felt it like this, but you until now.
Yeah.
But do you believe Emil's story when he told them later, look, it was just this one time I gave in and she was obsessed with me, da da da.
That's why I'm asking
I don't think I can answer that politically correctly. So politically correctly? With political correctness, I don't think I can answer that because I'm just going to say as a guy, there's certain things that we have control over.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like you have no control over that when it comes to that situation. You know, I think you can shut that down real quick if you want to. And it doesn't sound like
wanted to.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he wanted to. I mean,
yeah. Brian, were you going to say something about that?
Well, no, other than the fact that we've got this girl who's about going into college age, right? They were talking about her maybe going to Juilliard, I think.
Right.
And I was thinking about you, obviously, when that came up, right?
Yeah.
Did you go to Juilliard, Philip?
No, my daughter went to the Juilliard pre-college program. Wow, so when she was in high school, every Saturday I drove her to Juilliard the whole day long. She was doing.
I don't feel classy enough to be in this conversation right now. Jeez.
Yeah. But so I mean, I guess I did think about that, but you know, she has this boyfriend who's really sort of just a guy friend. We're really finding out. And she's exploring, as youths may do that are of that age, you know, her own stuff. So that's what was really available to her in a small town. I mean, the other ones are friends of her dad's, or they're much younger, like her brother's age, you know, kids. If anybody would have been maybe that kind of that bad boy, I forget his name, who's getting out of jail, you know, in the first scene that we see him in.
Right.
I thought maybe him just because, you know, of the other, but of Carl, you know, really being more just a friend. So
yeah, there was that moment when Frank, as narrator, said, if I had known what I know now, I would have understood that he was just basically a lost kid. As a kid, I saw him as a man, as an aggressive.
And no chance that this author didn't read Stephen King, because his bullies always pick on people with a stutter, like all the way. Wow. Billy.
Yeah.
That's the way that they do it. And he does it just like this. So if someone said to Henry Bowers, absolutely, that's what I went to from it.
Yeah. And I just put a comment in for no reason. And you know Stephen King will employ that just as Stephen King will employ that. If I knew now what I knew, he will like always do that kind of thing too.
Stephen King would open this up, but yeah, it's a shame that Ariel died though. He would open it up with that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Why you give a shit somehow?
But he does kind of open it in a way that, we get the kid with the accident on the train tracks. We're not sure if it's an accident or not, but I believe he says right in the first chapter, this is one of several deaths that occurred that summer. It sort of sets us up for, okay, is it going to be just random characters like we find in this first one, or are they going to be, important actual cast members that get?
I've read a lot of Phillips, writing, but I thought, it's going to be the parents. Got to lose a parent, right? But that's just the fantasy world. You always have to lose your parents, right? To come of age.
Yeah, it's true.
Mandatory.
Well, it's like, hey, check out chapter 1. I gotcha.
Yeah. Well, I like this comment here about Gus, because I feel the same way. I thought he was
a ride or die. Everybody needs a ride or die.
I'm also glad that Gus got some love before. We learned in the epilogue that he died in a plane crash with his girlfriend, or
with his new wife, I think, maybe.
Who Frank had a huge crush on, by the way. His girlfriend.
Yeah.
But he got together with the horse lady. Yeah, I mean, fair play, man. Fair play to Gus.
Yeah, but they died in a plane crash like 12 years later.
If you're gonna go out, that's pretty adventurous way to go out.
With 12 great years ago than have no good years.
Why do you suppose, again, Philip? Why do you suppose the author writes that like that? I mean, that we have to get more death. Is it because he could have easily said they moved to Montana and that was the end, to go raise horses and that was it.
Yeah,
but he killed them off.
Again, it's life. I mean, you live long enough, you see these tragedies come, and there's an inevitability to it all. Life is fleeting, and
I'm not an author, but I think the whole point of that epilogue was saying, hey, we get back together and we remember those who aren't here anymore. And so that's kind of what it was doing there. It was saying all the people, all of us, when you go through that town, you're going to start thinking about people you haven't thought about for years and what happened to them. So I think it was more that than the author being like, who have I not killed yet?
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike Sama. That does make sense.
Yeah, that rings true for me too, because as you get old, it sucks to get old, and the reason is that the loss starts to stack up. It just starts to stack up.
It sounds weird to say it, but there's almost a beauty to it too, I think. There's a preciousness in life, and you realize, Gus had those 12 beautiful years with this woman, and that's,
as long as we remember them, are they ever really gone?
Yeah, no, and that's more important than the plane crash in the end, isn't it? That he had those years. Yeah, Brian.
Well, one of the more power, and I made myself a note because I didn't want to forget this, but for me, I think the most powerful moment of the whole book, despite not what it was. Yeah, exactly. That was a big piece of it too. The Ordinary Grace part, when Ruth blows up for me, was really my prime moment with the book. But the second one, and it's a very close second, is when Frank says to Jake, "You're my best friend."
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like he knew what he needed to say, and it sort of changed the entire dynamic of the Jake character. Yeah. And it really, I don't know. I mean, it's like all of a sudden you talk about the point where the coming of age happens. And for me, that's part of it, where he knew he had to say that to his little brother. And, at that exact time and in that way, just the most simplistic way. Because if you're the younger brother, that's what you want to hear. I would imagine. I don't have older siblings, but I would imagine that's what you would want to hear from them is, "You're my best friend," because you're looking up to them, your whole life. So that was just a moment in the book that plot wise really maybe didn't make as big of a difference as it did character arc wise, for him to, quote unquote, I guess, grow up a little bit in the book, even with all the death and misery that's going on around him, he was able to do that.
I'm really glad you brought it up, Brian, because I do feel that there are beautiful moments in this book as well.
Oh God, yes.
That we have that scene, we have so many others, and that's important again, because I think the death, it's not just a coming of age in terms of he has to reconcile himself to the fact that people he loves are going to die. It's also coming of age in the sense that he's going to have to, he's making this realization that death is what makes life precious too. and it gives its beauty as well. And there are so many there's some gorgeous, descriptive passages in here about the river. I thought that the river takes on some really great symbolic resonance. It's a river you're familiar with, I assume, Brian?
Not as much. Minnesota River is definitely west of us, but yeah, I mean, seen it before. Not a whole lot to do over on that side of the state, but yeah.
But it has there's the river, and then there's, of course, where a lot of important events happen here in the river. But the trestle overlooking the river, the little train tracks going over the trestle. A lot of stuff happens there. What did you guys think of that as kind of a symbolic, important place where it's where Frank initially finds the itinerant, right, and meets Warren Redstone there. And
I think when he's on it, and he actually makes the choice to let Warren get away.
Exactly.
That kind of feels like the analogy for like making a decision to cross over into something else, a different path of life.
Nice.
Might be overthinking it, but that's kind of how
I don't think so. I don't think so, because he really brings us back there a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So it's a very important place.
And I was very glad that it wasn't Warren, because I didn't want Frank to have to live with that I'm the one who let my sister's killer go.
Yeah. But that moment, right, when Frank let Warren run across the trestle and get away, when the cops were looking for him down there by the river, and then also when Jake kind of had snapped to what was going on and was protecting Emil's sister. The whole coming of age thing's kind of stood on its head a little bit, that for me, because it's like, here's these two young people in this town where it's just filled with lives that haven't gone the right way, filled with discontent, and they're still pure enough to see these moments of grace and have forgiveness. And you get a little bit older, and that gets harder and harder. You start saying things like, oh, I hate that trope about not being able to control yourself. Or Mike says, I can't answer that PC-wise because, you can shut that down. There's something to be said for what we lose when we are looking at this world through younger eyes, and we're still able to have some purity of soul and forgive.
Sure.
So it's like Jake when he says, I don't want anyone else to get hurt over this, right?
Oh, yeah. This is what
his compassion for Lisa is so key to this whole thing, because yes, I think we all agree that Emil is a jerk for getting Ariel pregnant, for allowing that to happen. Even if he was as passive as he describes in all of it, I still think he's to blame. You're talking about a 17-year-old girl here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what about Lisa? How do you guys feel about her as essentially the murderer?
And you can roast in hell. Sorry, I'm kind of unforgiving on that. So Jake proves himself once again to be a better man than I am. So even today, he's a better man for preteen as I am today.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, she killed Ariel. That is a horrific fact that you cannot look away from. And yeah, I mean, even though, and I believe when she communicates that 1 second, because we got that set up, right? When Frank touches her.
Yeah, and she just
goes, it's not a voluntary reaction. She just swings with that, deadly instrument there. And that's what happened. Ariel just touched her. And it wasn't even malice. It wasn't even, oh, you're taking my brother away from me. It seemed genuinely to be a moment of just she lost control of herself and didn't even realize she had killed her until she saw a body under her and blood and all of that. And actually, probably she was still alive.
Yeah, no, she was drowning. Yeah, that was drowning after the fact. Yeah.
So your thoughts on that, Brian or John?
I mean, she's described, I think back then diagnoses for mental illnesses were, not very good. And the way that she's described right on in the book, I mean, I clearly, I read it as this is definitely somebody that has mental illness going on. And that she's very strong and she's doing all of these chores and labors. And the author really made it a point to talk about how strong and tough she was, but also how mentally challenged that she was, without really specifically naming this, the whatever diagnoses that may have been today. But certainly paranoid would be one. And just, I don't know. I felt like I think to Mike's point where he was saying Jake's forgiving, I don't know if I would be that forgiving. I think for me, it's like mental illness is a really difficult thing to wrap my head around when it comes to are they at fault or not? And do they really realize they're at fault? Because even as I look back at the book, I don't necessarily, I mean, yes, she's the murderer, but what would she be found guilty of? Certainly not murder one. I mean, this was not a planned deal. I think the courts would probably find her not fit to be charged with murder and put her in a home, and which is essentially what seems to have happened here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think again, it gets to these themes of just grief and loss, and not necessarily anything that really out of malice, just bad things sometimes happen. And I think those are my thoughts on Lisa. I love your flask, by the way. That's Bell Flask. If anybody happens to be watching, Mom, you can tell Dad that Bell Flask is on the Phillips Chase channel.
We at the Quilluminati,
yes,
love our bells.
Yeah, you can take, if you go on a cruise, you can take one in your bag, and it's doesn't go through. It doesn't set off the metal detectors.
That is very
not that I would do that. I'm just letting you know.
Not that you would know.
Absolutely.
Portable. Makes your frosty beverage even tastier, right, John?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna have to find out.
You guys are so funny. I think, and I'll wrap up my thought on Lise, but I felt bad for her. I felt bad in the sense that she's sort of this caretaker of her brother in some regard, and she's doing all this work, but who's really caring for her throughout all of this? And because clearly she's, she's not at the level of mental struggle where she can't function as an adult, but clearly something is really wrong. And in those days, they just, I don't know if they called it the village idiot or what, but they just, there wasn't help for those kinds of people. And so I felt really strongly bad for her at the end, because I don't think she even really knew what she did.
I think Kellen is right about the forgiveness being a layer of this title as well, Ordinary Grace. But I want to hear what John thinks about this whole
Lise
aspect of it. Lisa, what do you think, John?
I mean, look, completely tragic character, right? Like, I don't even know if forgiveness for me fits into it. I'm like Brian. I'm not quite sure she's completely in control of what happened, or kind of like you, Philip. I don't think she's completely in control of what happened. Thematically, she lives an entirely physical life, right? An entirely physical life, serving her brother, taking care of her brother, cut off from the world because she's suffering from this agoraphobia, or these maladies, and also the loss of hearing. And when this physical reality that she's dealing with comes in contact with this beautiful, transcendent artist, that kind of is what's going to destroy art in this world, when you have to deal with the real world, right? And it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. It's tragic on every level. Just like Emil goes to war, and what happens to him? Well, he can't quite create anymore. It's like there's that theme of where art can take us, and how the physical realm will stifle it. It's just tragic on every level.
Well, it's a great question. Why is Lisa close with Jake? What's the bond?
I just think they're similar age. I don't know. I mean,
she's a lot older, though.
Oh,
yeah, way older.
Was she way older? Okay.
Yeah.
But
I guess it makes sense if she's carrying,
I think Frank speculates that it's because he is a stutterer.
Yeah.
And she is deaf, and they're both ostracized, and
that makes sense.
A bond in that. But I think there's something deeper going on too.
There's and there's also the fact that he's the youngest, and I think that would make him the least intimidating for her. And almost as she's caretaking for her brother, he's this little kid that maybe in her mental falls under this umbrella that she looks after him as well.
I mean, he's clearly not a threat to her.
Right.
Most people are a threat to her. He also there is something about Jake, though, I think, too, that he's incredibly wise. He's incredibly wise. He has Okay, so yes, he has a
When you're
hard
a
time.
stutterer, I think you learn to be a listener. So
There you
according
go.
to
That's it,
Jimmy,
Mike.
Yeah.
That's
you're
exactly
afraid
right.
to talk, you're going to listen a lot more. You know, a lot
Exactly
of times
right.
you're scared to talk.
Yep. That's bingo. That's it. I
Yeah,
think Jake is a perceptive human being. Because of being a stutterer, he has made himself into a listener.
Yeah.
And he understands people with a sense of empathy and compassion, which is just a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Once again, there's so much beauty in this story too, isn't there?
Yeah. But not only a listener, like an observer. Like I don't think it's by accident. Jake is the one that knows Lisa did it.
Yeah, he figures it out first.
He's the one that knows. He's
Yeah.
the one that's watching and understands and knows when no one else can snap to it. You know.
And he's been so angry about the death of his sister and so hurt, and yet he still chooses not to say anything about Lisa.
Well, I think he gets it. I think he understands. It wasn't this malicious murderer that went out and murdered her. It's not like the ex-boyfriend or any of that. I mean, I think he has that sympathy and the empathy because he has been ostracized as well.
Does it make sense to you guys that Jake would be the one who would become a pastor, follow in his father's footsteps? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
what is Frank? Frank becomes a history teacher, I think. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that right?
I don't remember.
He was a teacher.
Who would do that? Who would become a teacher?
Yeah. Ooh,
Weird.
That's a whole different kind of calling.
Somebody who's not interested in being rich.
Yeah, I'm married to one. I know.
Oh my gosh, you guys cracked me up.
Yeah. So beautiful book. I'm so glad, Mike, that you picked this. But I think it's time for us to give our final thoughts on this. So let's start again in the same order I started. John, would you like to give us anything we missed, anything you want to bring up, with just your final thoughts on this read?
Really beautiful, really tragic, really affecting. Gonna stick with me a long time. Thought-provoking. I mean, if I were to make, and there's only a quarter left, I mean, if I was to make my 10 best of the year, this would probably be on there for sure.
Wow. So that would answer the not slips question then, I think.
I mean, if it's not a 5, it's way close.
Yeah.
It's way close. For the emotional punch it gave me just by itself. I mean, for me, it's like art comes to me and it elicited an emotional response to the point where I would have to consider it for that list.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Mike, your thoughts, final thoughts.
I think that I had so many people, in that coming of age video I made, just all saying that they think that this would be there's zero chance I'm going to like. I mean, I'm pretty easy to figure on that one. So I was pretty sure I was going to like it, but I guess what I didn't expect was to get some of the similar things I love from some other stories, other authors who have made me love this little subgenre. Stephen King, Robert McCammon. There's even some Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird here, and I'd say even as far as some Mark Twain.
Yeah,
in here.
absolutely.
That's the first one that I ever read of that. So I think it's just such a delicate subgenre that some people can do right and some people just can't. I definitely think he's one who can. And again, to me, it all comes down to the way I think back. Is that the way at that age I would have talked to somebody? And I never once think, no kid's saying these things at that age. But, these kids, especially, we talk about Jake's being wise, you can see, okay, they have a lot of wisdom for their age, but it's not like they're a history professor or something like that, like Philip here. But I'm just saying that he's able to hit that in the ways that makes me really appreciate this, and that you remember what it was like being a kid and how you bullshit with your friends, how you talk with your friends and stuff. And it doesn't even mean you have to have been raised in the same time period, because we were all kids once. And I feel like up until I had kids all kind of talk to each other the same. Now they're all like Skivity, Ohio, whatever. I don't even know what the hell they're talking about anymore. But I think that's just everybody with their kids, right?
Well,
it's an amazing book. I'm very, very happy with it. I'm glad you guys seem to enjoy it as well.
You did really well, brother.
I needed a hit after Banished Birds. I needed
a hit. Oh, poor John.
Where's Joe's comment?
He is so funny.
I will say you did really well, brother, on the pick.
Yeah, you really did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brian, your final thoughts.
Again, it's something that I said really early, that I just have such appreciation for this author. He just evoked such a sense of realistic atmosphere for me,
Yeah.
particularly because I spend all my time in fantasy and science fiction for the most part, and to be so descriptive and evoke that feeling like I had when I was a kid in this state, and just describing what rivers are like, and these themes of loss and sort of grief that they're going through, and the just like I said, just kind of like these inner anger issues that I think all of them really seem to have on some level, and how they deal with it. It was just portrayed so real to me that I believed every minute of it. And for me, when I'm going to read a book that's like outside of fantasy and sci-fi, I want it to feel like this, like Mike said, these are conversations that kids could happen. Everything in this book felt like, it makes sense to me. And I just thought it was a beautiful book. And I don't always run into coming of age themes apart, like I said, from we're going to go off, to the training and the John Gwynne
Our parents
types
are going to die.
Right. We're leaving the farm to do this and that. That's how we, as SFF readers get into that. Mike and John a lot different, as more Stephen King stuff. But yeah, just all of this and the faith and just the themes of faith alone for me.
Yeah.
Before you've gotten older and more jaded about everything.
Yeah. And you see the world from Frank's perspective as this young child, all the way to the epilogue where he's got his own family and he's picking up his dad who's having a hard time getting into the car because he's older. All of that just worked chef's kiss for me on this book. And somebody was asking for star ratings. This, for me, I rarely give 5 stars to anything unless it's like just life-changing for me. But occasionally I'll have a book that will find its way to 5 stars. And for me, that's what this, I think, might wind up with over time. I'd throw it, for me personally, at about a 4.75 right now. But I suspect as time goes by and I think about this book more and more, it could sneak its way into that 5. But I'm notoriously stingy about a 5. Like Shogun gets a 5. That's how tough it is.
When you're rating it, is it going to live in your mind and make you be a better person when you have to think back about
all
what
hope
Jake
is gone
did or what
for
Nathan
me.
Did?
John, all hope has been gone for me for 30 years. So
I'm going to keep working on you, Brian.
There's no hope for me left, but possibly. How about you, Philip?
I love the read. I really do feel that you mentioned faith, and I think you're so right to bring that up, Brian.
Yeah.
And it's not just one, monolithic portrayal of faith. You have all kinds of different approaches. You've got Nathan, who is an incredible, admirable individual, but you also have Ruth, who I think is just as validated in this story. And she has some key moments in here that we talked about. And you have Frank as a narrator voicing his doubts all the time. And you have even Jake, who, there are moments when he doesn't want to believe in God because of what happened to his sister. And I think that's so true to our human experience, that we have moments of doubt. We have moments of faith. We have moments of assurance and beauty. We have moments of sorrow when it's harder to believe in the good things that we want to believe in. So I really appreciate this very honest, raw, beautiful portrayal of faith and sorrow and loss and life and the beauty of it all. So yeah, I love this read. I don't do star ratings really.
Yeah,
me neither.
But, that's okay.
It's probably I don't see how it wouldn't be on my top 10 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, same here.
I mean, that's kind of what I got to say. I can't think of 10 others right now that it would edge it off.
But remember, folks, to
hey guys, you got 3 months.
That's our takeaway: is Bell Flask.
Yeah,
you can take your time. You can read it. You can wait until. I like to do it right before we do this, so I'm
same here.
Remember,
so we're fresh.
But again, guys, if you haven't watched the Netflix series, it's incredible. It only gets better as it keeps going. I think season 3 was like on Game of Thrones level amazing. So I'm so excited to do this because I love it. I've got the shirt that says
here it is.
I'm very excited about it.
It's awesome.
I'm so glad that you picked this, even though I was like wait. We weren't supposed to pick books that are part of a series. But then I heard Bernard Cornwell. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay,
But it does function, I hear, pretty well as a standalone.
I think about where the first season ended, and I can see that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just really, really glad you guys all bought in on the Quilluminati idea, because this is just a lot of fun for me to do this. I hope it's as much fun for you guys, because it's just like I said, it's just it's four friends that get to talk together about the stuff that we like, and maybe this one coming up is a little bit more in our wheelhouse than the last two books.
I can't wait for Philip to talk about like all these different languages and stuff.
Oh yeah,
really fly over our heads.
I'm busting out the Old English and the Old Norse guys.
So. Oh, you're gonna have an opportunity for sure.
And how this goes somehow into Beowulf, it's gonna be amazing.
Oh, it's it's gonna be there.
These are the people who brought you Beowulf.
I've done book club things before I had a channel kind of thing, and it always ended up being where like after a while people would just flame out, or they just wouldn't read the book, and they get there, I didn't really read it. I'm like, well, what the fuck are you doing here?
Oh, I hate
it.
So it's nice. It's nice to have people that I know I can depend on. We've got a schedule, and I know we're going to be able to talk about it because you're all going to read it. And I'm just glad that all you guys finished mine, because I will probably be the only one this whole trip who DNFs a book. And
no,
I'm ashamed of that.
I'm determined to DNF a book.
Brian's like, I'm gonna find something like impossible to read or
seriously.
like,
hey, wait a minute.
Silmarillion. We're doing the Silmarillion, guys.
Well, none of you guys have read the Worm or a Boris, so.
Oh yeah.
The Cloud Atlas. No,
I was so hoping I just hated this, so I could come up with like the way Mike did with Vanished Turds, and I could have said, well, Mike picked Ordinary Distaste, and I just can't. I couldn't finish it. But it was just beautiful.
You had a dragger of a title for it. All right, that's good.
Maybe we'll all hate The Last Kingdom. Who knows?
I doubt it.
No, not a chance.
I'm calling it right now, because I know how deep Philip's TBR is, and he's not booking into 2025. He's booking quite a ways out. I'm calling it now. The Warlord Chronicles will get started next year somehow on his TBR, because he's just gonna.
I read it all in a month, Philip.
Yeah, he's gonna go bonkers over Cornwall.
I have read this 30 years ago.
Oh, really?
Mentioned that. Yeah, I've read
Warlord
this.
Chronicles. You watch a TV show?
I haven't seen the TV
I have
show.
not.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I know nothing about any of it.
Right after you finish, because I'm excited to see just how faithful it was. I mean, people that I don't really do Reddit anymore, but at the time I was when I was watching it, and the Last Kingdom Reddit, like, people were just like over the moon about like how faithful it was, because it was doing like 2 books per season was how they were doing it for a while, and so there was no fluff like at all. It was just straight meat and potatoes. But I'm excited to get a little bit more depth, and I'm ready for a shield wall. I'm ready. I got to die with my weapon in my hand, because that's the only way we're going to Valhalla, baby. I can't wait.
I love it.
I also want to thank everybody in the chat. Thank you for coming out. And
for sure.
Also, big thank you to Team Replay for anyone who watches this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know the people that watch our channels are mostly fantasy, so the fact that we picked this book and they actually read along, that's really, really awesome.
That's awesome. My mom read along with us. She's
my mom gonna read Uhtred, Son of Uhtred with us?
You know what? She's reading To Ride Hell's Chasm right now.
Wow.
So
my mom wouldn't touch fantasy with 100-foot pole.
Because my mom saw Janny on Tori's show and was just blown away, as all of us are whenever we listen to Janny. And she's like, do you think I would like her book? And I said, I don't know, Mom. I don't know. I mean, she like the fantasy stuff. She was like, I'm going to try it. 3 chapters in, she says, I'm hooked. This is great.
Nice.
I'm like,
that's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, he has excellent taste. So that's a yes on Shippy's Beowulf for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Dr. I had to put Warlord Chronicles on my all-time fantasy list. I think you're going to love it. I think it's gonna be one of your favorite series.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess Brian has made the prediction, and I never want Brian to be wrong. So.
Well, we're not going to. We're not going to. We're not.
Philip, that Warlord Chronicles will be your jam, and I mean, I'm the one who loves Thomas Emery, and he played around with the Arthurian legend in all kinds of ways, and it just worked for me. And I know you reading a lot more historical fiction than I have. I think you're just gonna just eat it.
I strongly suspect Philip will get more out of that trilogy than the 3 of us combined.
Oh no,
just because of what all his studies.
I have read a few Arthurian tales.
I bet.
Yeah, if you've read
going way back, going way back. I have a few texts right over here from. I have the first mention of King Arthur is the monk Gildas in the 6th century.
So here we go.
Here we go. Here we go.
Somebody go get me a bottle of whiskey. I'm gonna
Arthur in
Yeah.
high school.
Gildas
People were
and
like,
Geoffrey of
"Is this an
Monmouth.
assignment? Do you have to read this?" Like, no, I just love the Arthurian legend, man. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But they've got Tristan and Isolde is in there. Oh, it goes all over, man. It ranges.
It's real fun trying to figure out how to pronounce words because apparently people
Forget it.
I'm saying the names one way, and people are saying, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Because they listen to it on the audiobook, and apparently they know how to pronounce them. I'm like, I have no idea.
Well, I do speak Welsh, so that'll help me a
So
lot.
yeah,
You'll know those characters. Yeah, there's one in particular I think starts with a G that's got like 18 letters in it, and I have no idea.
and
how
like
to
8
pronounce
of them are G's. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Mike knows the one I'm talking about. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Well, thanks for having us, Phil. This was really awesome.
Thank you so much.
Huge pleasure.
Brian,
long live the Quilluminati.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's involved in Brian's court now. Were you going to wear a costume? Are you going to dress up like Uhtred in the next episode? Or?
Yes.
So this one was the most Minnesota-like pattern of a shirt that I had, which is why I'm wearing this shirt. It's never been in a video before. So yeah, we'll probably come up with something since it's going to be on BellTube. I'll have to figure something out.
Nice.
It'll be cool. Maybe I'll build a shield wall.
It'll be worth coming just to see how Brian dresses.
Yes.
The next.
Brian's going to buy us all shields, and we're all going to hold them up to the shield wall. Yeah.
I do have a Viking sword. I could use that.
There you go. Cool. Awesome.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah.
Destiny is all.
That's right. Long live the Quilluminati.
Yes.
Oh, I had to hit that twice. Sorry.